My raspberry cake with cream cheese icing is going to be delicious. I've never seen a cake like this before. I did some research on Google and I didn't see anything that looks like what I have in mind, so this should be interesting. Basically, if you are familiar with traditional southern layer cakes, I'm envisioning a raspberry version of a strawberry layer cake or a blackberry jam cake. I've done videos for both of those on my channel, so go check those out. I'll see if I can remember to include links below. But if you don't know, a strawberry layer cake is when you take strawberry puree, mix it with cake mix to make the cake layers, and then you cover the cake with cream cheese frosting. Blackberry jam cake is a traditional Christmas cake from Appalachia in which they use blackberry jam to sweeten the cake. And instead of cream cheese frosting, most people use some sort of caramel frosting. My interpretation of that uses a cake mix and blackberry puree, so it's a bit different, but it's delicious. So like I said, go check that out. So for this raspberry version, I'm basically envisioning it being a cake that has a lot of raspberry puree in it. I'm going to add some gelatin just like with the strawberry layer cake. I think it's going to be really beautiful, a really nice color. It's going to have a nice sweet and tart contrast, and the cream cheese icing is going to top it all off. In this bowl, I have one 15.25 ounce box of white cake mix, along with one small box of raspberry gelatin. Pretty sure it's 2.9 or 3.9 ounces. Cannot remember off the top of my head, but it's a small one. For the raspberry puree, what I did is I bought two 12-ounce bags of frozen strawberries. I defrosted them and then I pureed them. And then I passed the puree through a strainer. What I did is I put the strainer over a bowl, I put some of the puree in, and then I just shook the strainer and then used my spoon to stir around the puree in the strainer, and little by little the juice fell through. I did it in 3 stages. You don't want to do it all at once. And just so you know, I saved the seeds. This is what they should look like in the strainer. They should be basically just the seeds, not much juice left. That's what you want in this strainer to make sure you get as much juice as possible. I have 1.5 cups or 240 plus 120 grams of raspberry juice. If you can buy it already made, just bottled raspberry juice, that's fine. I have not found that anywhere, so I'm using the puree. And honestly, I think if you make the puree yourself, especially the way I did, there's going to be a little bit more fiber from the strawberries left over, and I think that's going to give your cake more body, shall we say. I'm going to use 1/4 of a cup of canola oil, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Honestly, I don't think it's critical, but I usually add a tablespoon of vinegar to my cakes, and I think a tablespoon of lemon juice will go nicely with the berries, since lemon and berries almost always go together. I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of raspberry extract. If you don't have that, I'm sure vanilla or even lemon would be fine. All I'm going to do is I'm going to empty my raspberry gelatin into the bowl and add my puree. Like I said, I'm envisioning that this raspberry cake will be a beautiful color, perfect for Christmas, but suitable for really any time of the year as well. Here goes in the lemon juice, raspberry extract, canola oil, and also 3 large eggs, which I actually almost forgot. While I was setting up for the video, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was forgetting something. As you know, I like to spread all of my ingredients out on the countertop, and it just looked like I was missing something. I'm really glad I caught that before I put the cake in the oven. Once all of your ingredients are in the mixing bowl, blend to combine. I just finished mixing the batter for my raspberry cake, and as you can see, it's a very nice color. And even though it does have raw eggs, I tasted it and it tastes amazing. I already buttered and floured my 8-inch cake pans. Now I am going to pour the batter into the pans, and of course I'm going to get my food scale in a minute to make sure that I have even layers. My oven is preheating to 325 degrees. I just pulled my raspberry cake out of the oven. It was in at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes. Although I think that you could use a lot of types of frosting on this cake, I decided to use cream cheese icing. I used cream cheese icing because it's sweet and tangy, and I thought that its flavor profile would combine very well with the sweetness and tartness of the raspberry cake. However, since this is basically a raspberry version of Southern Blackberry Cake, which usually has caramel icing, I think that you could use caramel icing on this raspberry cake as well, because the sweetness of the caramel frosting would contrast very nicely with the tartness of the raspberries. I also think that a chocolate cream cheese frosting would be good as well. Although I was definitely tempted to dig in right away, I chilled the cake in the refrigerator for a few hours before cutting the first slice. When I finally did dig in, I realized just how delicious my raspberry cake with cream cheese icing truly was. Just as I had predicted, this raspberry cake with cake mix had a great sweet and tart flavor contrast. Because I strained the raspberry puree that I added to the cake batter, the cake was light and fluffy with no seeds to get in the way. But since this cake is similar to blackberry jam cake and some traditional jam cake recipes have nuts and shredded coconut, I think you could definitely add those to this cake. In addition to the delicious contrast in flavors, this raspberry cake also had a beautiful contrast in colors. The white cream cheese frosting contrasting very nicely with the reddish purple cake. The color combination making this raspberry cake one of the best Christmas cakes. And since I made this cake with frozen raspberries instead of fresh, you can make this whenever you want, even if it's cold and snowy outside. You can definitely make this raspberry cake with fresh strawberries if you have access to really good, high quality fresh berries. But where I live, those are hard to come by, so as with all of my other fruit-based desserts, I usually use frozen fruit because the quality is consistently high. Although I really liked this raspberry cake with cream cheese frosting, like I said earlier in the video, there are some other options. I already suggested a lightly flavored chocolate frosting, but I also think a lemon frosting or even white chocolate would be great with this raspberry cake. Maybe even a raspberry frosting. However, this recipe was almost a total disaster because, as you saw, I almost forgot the eggs. I'm honestly not sure how it would have turned out without the eggs, but it's possible that it would have been a kitchen fail. That's why it's always a great idea to have a written list of the ingredients before you start so that you can make sure you have everything. Although I almost left out a fairly important ingredient, learning how to make raspberry cake with cake mix is actually really easy. It's a great alternative to blackberry jam cake, and because of the color combination, it's the perfect holiday dessert. Actually, this cake is the first in my series of Christmas cakes, so stay tuned for more. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.